Curiosity really is founded in the recognition that we are all unique individuals. We have a tendency to think that like we can follow one size fits all, formulas or programs
Mhm.
to like if this nutrition system worked for you, then it's got to work for me. If this form of exercise or this advice that somebody gave you worked for you and helped you, then it has to work for me. But the reality is, we're all unique individuals. We have different histories. Our bodies work differently. Our minds are, different.
Mhm.
So, curiosity really, the point is to take a look at me.
Welcome to the Erie Wellness Podcast, your go-to source for all things health, wellness, and living your best life right here in Erie. I'm your host, Lauren Brunetti, and I'm so excited to have you here. Each episode, we'll dive into conversations with local experts and wellness professionals who are making an impact in the world of health and well-being. Before we jump in, be sure to like, share, and comment on this episode. We love hearing from you and seeing our community grow. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Can you believe that the holidays are already here? Whether you're hitting the road for Thanksgiving or staying close to home, this time of year always fills up so fast. Between the gatherings, the to do list, and everything in between, it's easy to put our own wellness on the back burner. So, my hope is that this episode gives you a moment to pause, take a breath, remind yourself of all the amazing things you have going on in your life right now, and a reminder that we need to take care of ourselves so we can really show up for the people and moments that matter most. So, Karen, I am so glad to have you on the podcast today. You've worn many hats: mom, grandmother, group fitness instructor, nonprofit leader, business builder, and now you are the author or co author of Thriving in Grace with your husband and a podcaster. So, for those who don't know anything about you, can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you into the world of wellness and personal growth?
Sure. And thanks so much for having me on here, Lauren. I'm really excited to join you today. So, like you said, I'm a mom. I've got two kids who are in their 20s. We adopted them as babies. And
Mhm.
then, very surprising, miraculous, I got pregnant at 46. So, we've got another one who's now in middle school. And then grandkids, we've got 3 grandkids now. One more who was just born at the end of September,
Mhm.
and so we've got a full house, so I have gone from this place of being mom and, in a sense, guide to everyone and support to everyone to several years ago, I realized I had always had this back burner dream of being a group fitness instructor,
Mhm.
but I never thought I would be in good enough shape. So I got to the point where I realized, you know what? I'm actually really physically fit. I'm in really good shape. So I went ahead and did some training and started teaching PIO classes. And PIO is not really a thing anymore, but it was, 8 years ago, I guess.
Mhm.
And so I started teaching those classes, and then from there got into teaching other fitness classes. I was working at a gym that's similar to a CrossFit gym where we had that kind of intensity in our workouts, but
Mhm.
this one also had fitness rankings. So everybody was really challenged to like meet these tests and get better, and there was like standards that you would meet to rank up. And I was working in this gym and really loved helping and supporting people meeting their goals, and at the same time I thought, what is the good of becoming your most physically fit self if other things in your life are falling apart?
Mhm.
And began to think about how fitness and wellness is not just our physical body, but that we also need to become healthy and experience wellness in all areas of our life, in our emotions, in our minds and thinking, even in our spiritual lives. So, from that place, I started to explore a little bit more. What does wellness look like from this more holistic place instead of just physical fitness.
Karen, I love how you were exploring the different areas of wellness outside of physical wellness, and really taking curiosity and making that an important part of your wellness journey. Can you explain what that means to you and how curiosity and being curious about yourself has shaped your own path?
Yes, curiosity really is founded in the recognition that we are all unique individuals. We have a tendency to think that like we can follow one size fits all, formulas or programs
Mhm,
to like if this nutrition system worked for you, then it's got to work for me. If this form of exercise or this advice that somebody gave you worked for you and helped you, then it has to work for me. But the reality is, we're all unique individuals. We have different histories. Our bodies work differently. Our minds are, different.
mhm,
So, curiosity really, the point is to take a look at me. And if I want to try something new, then don't just jump into it expecting, well, it worked for Lauren, so of course it has to work for me. Maybe it will, and maybe I'm different enough from Lauren that it won't work for me. Like an example is the kind of standard expert recommendation for exercise is to exercise in the morning. Me personally, I get really exhausted and tired. It works so much better for me to exercise in the evening rather than during the day so that I haven't lost my entire day, and it actually helps me to sleep. Whereas for many people, exercise kind of helps energize them, not for
right,
me.
interrupts
So,
their, like, quiet time, like, getting ready
yeah,
for bed.
exactly, exactly. So curiosity is just really about recognizing that we're all different people. And
Mhm.
so we're going to need to do what's right for me individually.
Mhm. I think having that curiosity is so important too because we're constantly bombarded. I mean, we have choices, so many choices throughout our day, and we're influenced by what we read, what we see from our friends and family, social media, all the things, all these inputs coming at us. And if we feel like we have to adapt to all of these things going on, you see, oh, well, I need to be doing this or I need to be doing this. And then it should quiet things down, and it's like, "Yes, that could be a possibility for me, but that doesn't mean I have to start changing things today, and I just need to start getting really curious about myself,
Right.
and figuring out what are the things that I wanna say yes to, or maybe the things that I wanna try, and the things that just aren't for me." So
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And even saying, I'm going to go into this trying and seeing how it impacts me, as
mhm,
opposed to I'm going to go into this expecting it's going to work for me because it worked for my best friend.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. How do you think that people can really tune out the noise because like I was saying, we get so much input on a daily basis and we're constantly making decisions and I mean, it's exhausting. From like do I should I be giving my kids fluoride? Like there's just so many things that come at us and you're just like, I don't know. But how can you trust your own intuition to make those decisions for yourself and for your family?
Yeah, good question. And honestly, it's there's all the noise and then there's all of the demands on us. I think we just have to try. I think we just have to practice it
Mhm,
and accept that I won't always get it right the first time.
mhm,
I might not make the right decision about everything the first time, but that's okay. Giving myself a sense of self compassion and tenderness to be able to say, okay, I can try again. I can do
mhm,
something different. I don't have to buy in to this is the only way. So I can learn to trust my intuition by giving myself the freedom to make a mistake. And then over time, I think we will begin to kind of hone our intuition.
mhm. And say, "I pulled back maybe a little too much that time or not
Mhm.
enough," and
Yes.
just really thinking about where you
Yeah.
are right then and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you
And
were
the
talking.
seasons change too, like, what you can do now, you might be able to do more of or less of in a different season, so
Mhm. Exactly. Like you were talking about things like children's activities. And we can go from, I've got my kids enrolled in something that everybody's busy 5 nights a week to, oh, that's too much. We're not doing anything to, finding the middle ground to just pursuing what is the one thing that I feel okay with? What is the thing that my kid feels okay with? You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm. And
just
getting their input too. I feel like
exactly.
that's a huge thing too.
Yeah, definitely.
So in your book, you introduce something called the grace cycle. Can you walk us through what that is and how it works?
Yes, yes. And it's interesting because there is a way I wrote about it in my book. There's 5 steps in the grace cycle.
Mhm.
And I realized like months after the book was published, there's letters in the word grace, which I have on my
Mm.
wall here. So,
Mhm.
the way I see the grace cycle, and I'm talking about it now, is the first step is get clear on what in my life might need to change. That's the first step in the book called identify a big picture area for something to change.
Mhm.
The second step is reconcile with the things I can't control or I can't change. And that's through acceptance. And sometimes it's rather radical acceptance that some things may have happened in my life, or there might be some big things that I am really wrestling with that I can't control, but I don't want them to be the way they are. And so acceptance is a huge part of this to
Mhm.
help us set ourselves up for moving forward by
Mhm.
starting by accepting the past.
Mhm.
And then the
Which can
A,
be hard too,
yes,
like,
it
if
can.
you're kinda stuck and you don't have any it's like accepting that is just hard. Or
Right.
we've committed to this, or if it's a financial thing, like, we're in this position, so we need to we're here, so we need to accept it and figure out what the plan is moving forward.
Absolutely. Yes. And I would also say too that I do not want to diminish. There are sometimes things in our past that have been downright traumatic that are really, really hard to accept.
Mhm.
But we can't change the past. So I can either be angry about it and fight against it and spend my energy wishing it was different, or I can accept that this is what has happened. And I do not want to say that this is easy because it can be really hard. But the only way forward is to say, this is my past. Now, what will be my future?
Mhm.
How much
Mhm.
am I going to let that really impact me and weigh on me?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and then the third step is acting through one simple change. And I write about one simple change a lot in the book. But the idea is not to try to overhaul everything in my life at once, but just choose one thing, one step in a new direction. And when I'm walking one step at a time in a new direction, I'm going to end up at a new destination. I won't end up where I was intending to go or where I was headed. This is a little bit of an intentional change of direction in life.
Mhm.
So the one simple change, which can lead to more changes, but we just commit to one thing at a time. We need support. So the C is for community. Community support is so important.
Mhm.
And we need people who will be our cheerleaders. We need people who will help us become the best versions of ourselves. Um, so sometimes we need to find new community and sometimes we've already got it. But finding the people who are supportive and not judgmental and who are kind and will help us continue in that new direction.
Mhm.
And then the final step is what I call excitement or celebrating our wins. And sometimes we talk about celebrate the small wins, but I've stopped even talking about a distinction between small wins and big wins because a win is a win is a win. Um, Everything, if you're making progress, whether it is, I woke up this morning and I chose eggs instead of a donut for breakfast,
Mhm.
it's every little thing, every big thing. It needs to be acknowledged and celebrated because that sets us up to keep moving forward and to keep making these changes. So
Mhm.
that's the grace cycle, GRACE.
Thanks for walking us through that, and I love that it's ending with celebrating, and I think that we don't do that enough is just celebrating our wins and even just celebrating that 1 foot forward that you made today with whatever you're working on or whatever's going on in your life. So, I like that idea of just, constantly be celebrating, and that's what makes life fun.
Yeah. And also, it's so easy. I know I do this to just go, all right, check that off the list and move on.
Mhm.
Pause and acknowledge, celebrate. I finished something, I accomplished something. And don't just move on without acknowledging it because we need to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important that we also have that love and acceptance piece before we can start making those changes?
Yeah, I think that it takes us to a place of rest and kindness to ourselves and compassion for ourselves,
Mhm.
instead of like so many times, like weight loss, I think is a good example. It's I need to lose X number of pounds. So I'm going to go clean out my pantry and get rid of all the sugar and I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but it's the mindset that I'm going into fighting and I'm going into battle mode. And then that's just like raising my cortisol and it's putting myself into fight or flight
Mhm.
as opposed to coming to a place of acceptance where I can say, okay, this is where I am. And from a place of calm, I can make the right choices for myself. Instead of being reactive, I can be responsive. Instead of being in fight or what I would call warrior mode sometimes, I
Mhm.
can make changes from a much more sustainable place because I'm coming from a place of rest within
Mhm.
myself.
It also helps you really assess, like, what are the root causes, right?
Absolutely.
Like, for the sugar
Mhm.
example, you have a lot of sugar in your pantry, and, like, what are you craving for? Why do you have that much? Why do you go to it? All of those kinds of things. Is it a
Yes.
reward for something, that you
Mhm.
give yourself or you give your kids? And is that really the type of reward you wanna have all the time? So,
Yeah.
just assessing all of it. So, you say one simple change. Is there an example from the book where it was, like, really you just needed to make one simple change and you saw a lot of progress that came out of that one simple change? Or an example from your own life that you would wanna share?
Yeah. Here's an example. In the last year, I was told by my doctor that I'm pre-diabetic,
Mhm,
and that's kinda like a scary thing to hit in life, and I think a lot of people are getting that news. One thing that I had heard a few places, there's a book out called, I think, Glucose Revolution.
mhm,
But one of the things and there's, like, a whole bunch of things that she talks about in that book that can help manage blood sugar, but one of the things that she talks about is when you're eating a meal, start with eating greens or vegetables,
mhm,
and then your protein and fat, and then end with your carbs.
mhm,
And then I was talking with my chiropractor who had also read this book, and she was like, "This is such an easy thing." And so in the last year, and my chiropractor also said, "And it makes a difference even if you start your whole day, it can help with your energy."
mhm,
So, literally, one simple change, I eat a salad, just dressed greens, first thing in the morning. It's my first thing before breakfast, and then usually, like, before dinner, I'll also have a salad
mhm.
or eat my vegetables first before everything else, and, depending on how you feel about your vegetables, maybe that's just getting the worst out of the way first anyway. Um but that one simple change has helped me manage my blood sugar
Mhm,
to the point where I have more energy throughout my day. I'm accomplishing things that before I was like, "Ugh, it's 2:15, I'm crashing. I can't keep
mhm,
going." Um, and so and then also, ultimately, it's helped me get to a place where I can be sleeping better, and then I've added on to that some other helpful habits to help
mhm,
me with sleep and to help me with my energy throughout the day. But that was
mhm,
just one simple thing that I started doing that I'd heard from some friends, and then my chiropractor's like, "Oh, this is a really helpful thing I just read about." It's like,
mhm,
"Okay, let's do that." So
mhm.
that's an example of one simple change that had kind of a ripple effect and also helped me add on to that and make some other changes.
That's a really good example because, our blood sugar levels affect so much of how we move and interact throughout our whole entire day, how we sleep at night.
Mhm.
Um, so for the listeners, once again, it's eating like greens or fiber first, right? And
Right.
then you move on to the protein and healthy fats on your plate, and then ending it with the carbs, which would, once you have some stuff in your belly, then it's not going to spike your blood sugar once you eat the carbs.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great example. So you and your husband, you wrote this book together, which is so special. What inspired the two of you to take on this project?
It came from, like I talked about in the beginning, this place of me feeling like wellness and health shouldn't be just my physical body. It needs to be the whole self. And so now we both have been to seminary and we both study the Bible. If you ask him what his love language is, it would be, what does the Bible say about fill in the blank? So I wanted to write a book about wellness from this bigger perspective,
Mhm,
and but I wanted to bring in the biblical perspective. There's a lot that's written from the perspective of science and everything, and I wanted to kind of come from a different place. And
mhm,
so I asked him, what does the Bible say about wellness, about health in physical, emotional, mental, spiritual?
mhm,
And from that we branched out into some other areas that we talk about in the book that are more like how I engage with the world, but starting with just who I am. And so he did a lot of study, and then I took his study and synthesis and I started putting the words on the page. And then as we got further down the road, he would read the chapters and come back and say, well, why don't you add in fact, there's case studies at the end of each of these sections of the book that about the specific areas of wellness. That was
mhm.
his idea. And then I wrote up the stories for the case studies. Um, so it was really just a very good synergy of the two of us. Yes.
What are the different dimensions of wellness that you talk about in the book?
We talk about physical wellness, spiritual wellness,
Mhm,
mental and emotional. Those are, like I said, the core four. And then what we call the connecting three, which is kind of how we are relating to the world around us. So there's relationships, relational wellness,
mhm,
vocational, which is my work or my service,
mhm.
and financial wellness. It's how I'm
Okay.
using my money.
Mhm. So technically there's 7 total then? Is that
Seven
what
total.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this episode is airing the week before Thanksgiving, a season where we're reminded to pause and reflect. I love that you talk about the fruit of gratitude. Can you share what that means and how gratitude has played a role in your own journey?
This was a huge part of our journey, again, going back to 2020, 2021, when we were in some really, really hard places. And as I started thinking about, I had launched my business in 2019. And so as I started thinking about what do I want to bring to the world, I told my husband I want to write a gratitude journal, but I don't want it to be like every other gratitude, like just list the top 10 things you're thankful for every day.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I asked him that magic question, what does the Bible say about gratitude?
Mhm.
And he did some great study and we brought it all together. But as we were doing the study and as we were organizing and framing up how to put this gratitude journal together, we it changed us. Um, it helped us to not come from a place of I'm supposed to be thankful, but come from a place of ex- immersing ourselves in the love of God and in the goodness of God. And from that, we found that gratitude grew naturally. It was like an organic fruit, for the lack of a better word, that
Mhm.
grew out of our rooting ourselves in this place of experiencing God's love.
Mhm. So is it now a journal?
It is, yes, it's a journal, The Fruit of Gratitude, and you can buy it on Amazon or you can get in touch with me because I've got several copies at my house and I'm
Mhm.
happy to send a signed copy too.
How does the format look different than just writing down like 10 things you're grateful for each day?
Yeah, the format is each day, and this is a 6-week journal. So each day has one verse or passage from the Bible. And then the idea is to read this and then spend some time just quietly meditating, just letting it sink into your heart and soul, and then
Mhm.
respond to a question that we have in the book. And then you write that down. And maybe that question doesn't gel with you. Again, like I said, I'm a firm believer that we're all unique individuals. So just because there's that question on the page, maybe there's something else that comes up for you as you're reading this passage and you want to write something different down. But each day for 6 weeks, 42 days, there are just some different things to look at and to begin to experience God's goodness and love, and from there we grow into experiencing gratitude.
Mhm. As your gratitude practice has evolved, do you find yourself just saying, thank you for letting me wake up today? Like, how has it evolved over time?
My gratitudes are just much more like noticing the beautiful things around me. Here it is the fall, going for a walk, and there's so much. The weather is beautiful, and the trees are beautiful. And and then through the year, we can notice a lot of different things in nature as it's changing. But just being aware of the good things and the beautiful things around me. I was once a person who was very, very critical and judgmental. So gratitude has changed me in the sense of being able to just be appreciative and um, be able to let go of things not being the way I want to or expect them to. I
Mhm.
still fall into that, of course, don't we all? Because we're human. There's
Mhm.
disappointments, there's frustrations, but gratitude has transformed me into a person who can step into acceptance that this isn't the way I wanted my day to be,
Mhm.
but I can make the day what it's supposed to be instead.
I think that hopefully people keep that in mind because oftentimes we have these expectations of the holidays and how they're supposed to go so perfectly planned. But I
Yeah.
think going in with that expectation of, I'm just grateful for the day and the opportunity to spend with family, like however it plays out.
Mhm.
Or even, like, choose a couple sides that, like, your family can't live without, but, like, maybe not do the full spread because if you know you're gonna do the full spread and then it's cleanup and all these times and it's gonna take away from you being able to, like, sit down with your family and talk after the meal or things like that. So just, like, getting curious, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like for me and what do I want it to be? So
And you know what? That's what I've started to do for Thanksgiving is I will go to my family and I'll say, "What's the one thing that has to be on the table or it doesn't feel like Thanksgiving dinner?"
mhm,
And and then all of these other things that I used to make that would take me hours in the kitchen and I'd feel like, "Okay, I worked and I worked and I worked," and now 10 minutes later, you're all finished eating and going off to do something else. So
mhm,
instead, it's just, what makes it simple, what makes it easy on us, and
mhm,
then we can just enjoy our time together.
right.
And like you said, I don't have as much to clean up, and I can just
Right, play
sit there.
games, do puzzles, just sit down and
Exactly.
talk.
Mhm.
I was also thinking about one other habit that I wanted to make sure that I talked to the listeners about, especially as we're kind of bridging the gap between Thanksgiving and the other part of the holiday season. But and maybe it's this year is when you kind of like do your list of all the responsibilities that you have throughout this holiday season. And being like, is this really a responsibility that I want to put on myself? There's just like a huge list of things that you have going on in your head as parents and caregivers and just family members in general. And just really assess your list. And maybe this year is when you write it down. What were all the things that I was responsible for? And at the end of the season, maybe you rewrite that list and say, like, this just can't be a priority right now. And then save the list for next year and bring it out like I have my reminder to bring it out November 1st. So I'm starting to think about it. And then now I know exactly what are the things I said was going to be a priority this holiday season and what are the things that I said no to. And I'll just go through my list and, keep it simple like that. So
That's
I
a
wanted to
great
remind people about that, especially as we head into this, holiday season.
that is a great tip because there's so many things that we go just last minute, like, "Oh, yeah, I meant to do this. Oh, yeah, I need to pick up some gifts for the teachers," things like
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that's great to be very intentional and purposeful about that.
For someone feeling overwhelmed or disconnected in this season, what's one small thing that you would offer up as a suggestion to reconnect with gratitude and grace?
This might seem counterintuitive, but what's coming to my mind is take some time alone in silence and connect with yourself. But that would be one thing that I would suggest to people. And like I said, some people might say, "Ah, let's do it." And some people might say, maybe not." And I get that.
Mhm.
So, but that's one thing I would offer.
Mhm. So, are there other ways that people can get in contact with you or work with you?
Yes, and through the holidays, I'm actually starting some different ways to support people, whether it is one-on-one support and help is what you need. I do grace cycle coaching,
Mhm.
or I am also starting just like a small, very casual, once a week on Wednesday mornings. Join me for virtual coffee at 10 in the morning. Bring your own coffee or tea or whatever you like to drink in the
Mhm.
middle of the morning. And we can just chat, whoever shows up. And so you can find out more about all of that through my website, karenadittman.com.
That's awesome, Karen. Exciting. A nice extended offer for our listeners. Um, and as we wrap up, what does thriving in grace mean to you personally right now in this season of your life?
Mm, that's such a great question, Lauren. And one of the things that I'm aware of is that the way I see grace is the way God shows up in his power in the world. So you won't hear me talking about giving myself grace or giving others grace because I think that grace is a supernatural thing, honestly.
Mhm.
You'll hear me talking about compassion and care and things like that. But really, thriving in grace to me is this sense of being connected to God and to his love and trusting that whatever is going on in this season of my life, even if it feels hard or impossible sometimes, these are things that I can do my part and I can ask God to do the parts that I can't do.
Mhm.
So if there are things in my children's lives that I'm trying to support them in, what's my part? What do I need to surrender to God and ask him to help with? So that's what
Mhm.
thriving in grace really means for me.
Well, thank you, Karen, so much for being with us today. Friends, as we head into Thanksgiving week, I just want to remind you to take a breath and really soak it all in. The holidays can get busy and fast, but try to slow down and enjoy the moments that matter the most: good food, laughter, and time with the people that you love. And remember that wellness isn't just about doing it all perfectly, it's about balance, gratitude, and taking care of yourself right where you are. Thanks for tuning in to the Erie Wellness Podcast. I'm so thankful for each of you for listening. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving week, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, friends, before we wrap up, here's the part I need to share. This podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. I'm just your friend behind the mic. Nothing shared on this podcast creates a patient relationship with any of our guests or replaces the guidance of your physician, professional coach, or other qualified expert. And the views shared by guests are entirely their own and don't necessarily reflect the beliefs or values of the Erie Wellness Podcast. My goal is to simply create a space for real, open conversations that help us all learn, grow, and feel a little more connected on our wellness journeys. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you back here next time. That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Erie Wellness Podcast. I truly appreciate you being a part of this journey. If you loved today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. For more daily wellness inspiration and behind the scenes content, be sure to follow me on Instagram at the Erie Wellness Podcast. I can't wait to connect with you again soon.